So like, everyone celebrated when Rick killed Prime, right? Revenge arc's done, we got our guy, we can all go home. Except, that kill didn't fix anything. It broke everything. Because Prime wasn't just some antagonist Rick needed to cross off a list. This is the dude who, while dying by the way, looked C-137 in the face and said,
"What's your life without me?"
Let's find out.
"What's your life without me?" And like, yeah, he was right. That's what makes it so messed up. Prime was basically the load-bearing wall holding the entire multiverse together. And you pull him out, the ceiling just comes down. That's season 8. That's what we're watching right now. It's not a victory lap, it's a collapse in slow motion. And it raises this question that honestly just gets worse the longer you sit with it. What's more dangerous? A multiverse with Rick Prime in it, or one without him? Okay, so let's start with Rick himself. Because before the multiverse starts crumbling, we gotta talk about what killing Prime actually did to this man's head. C-137 spends basically his entire adult life on one single mission, and that was it. Find Prime and kill him. He built the Citadel over it, burned through infinity, killed who knows how many other Ricks along the way just trying to narrow the search. All to find the one Rick who murdered Diane. And not just his Diane, by the way. Every version of her across all of existence just gone. Every single one of them. And Prime even bragged about it. He recorded a whole message for any Rick dumb enough to get close, saying Diane was wiped out using the Omega device, which was his weapon that he designed. And he wasn't. He wasn't sorry about any of it. He called it being talented. That's literally what he said. Like, imagine having your wife erased from every reality, and the guy who did it just calls himself talented for pulling it off. That's who we're dealing with here. So Unmore Trickin' happens, and C-137 finally catches him and beats him to death with his bare hands. And you'd think, okay, it's done. It's finally everything Rick ever wanted. Decades of rage finally validated. But Evil Morty already saw it coming. Before it even went down, he asked Morty this question that, like, nobody was ready for. What happens if Rick actually kills this guy? Maybe he'll kill himself next. And then after it's over, Prime's on the ground, not an alive amount of blood anywhere, and Evil Morty just looks at Rick and goes, "How's it feel? Better? No? Exactly the same? Yeah, it always does." And, yeah, he was right. Rick got everything he ever wanted. And felt absolutely nothing. So fast forward to season 8, and this just isn't the same Rick at all. He's just kind of around, tagging along with Space Beth on whatever she's doing. Not because he cares, and not because there's some big mission, but just because there's literally nothing else going on. The most dangerous mind in existence is basically just vibing and being weirdly agreeable and even supportive, which is honestly, it's kind of eerie when you think about it. He's just a lost Rick. But don't let that fool you, because the first episode of season 8, Summer of All Fears, this same guy trapped Summer and Morty in a Matrix simulation for 17 years over a phone charger.
Rick put us in a simulated reality to teach us a lesson about taking his phone charger and not giving him back, and then he fell asleep and forgot about us for the Matrix equivalent of 17 years.
And you already know how that played out. Summer built a whole empire in there, got married, ran a country and everything. Morty did prison time, fought in a war, watched his best friend CJ die in his arms. And that's a guy who never even existed in the first place. All of that because Rick fell asleep at the controls and just forgot about them. That's not growth, and that's not moving on. That's what happens when someone like Rick has no enemy to aim at. Because the cruelty doesn't leave, it just kind of goes random and finds smaller, pettier targets. You know? Okay, so that's the internal collapse. But now we gotta talk about the external one. And honestly, this part's way worse. To get why the multiverse is actually falling apart right now, you gotta remember what Prime really was. Not who, but what. SolarX makes it pretty clear that he was the true inventor of portal travel. Not one of many Ricks who figured it out, but the actual first one. The original. He had instant regeneration too. Jerry Prime literally slit his throat with a dagger, and the wound just closed up. And Prime laughed in his face and then shot him dead. So this wasn't some villain you beat and move on from. This was like a god-tier constant that the whole system was built around. And you just don't remove something like that and expect things to hold together. Because before all this, the multiverse actually had structure. We know what the central finite curve was now because Evil Morty spelled it out in Rick Mirai Jack. A wall around infinity where every version of Rick was kept as the smartest man in his universe. And his exact words were, quote, "Every version of us has spent every version of all of our lives in one infinite crib built around an infinite fucking baby."
Every version of us has spent every version of all of our lives in one infinite crib built around an infinite fucking baby.
Like it was a daycare. That's literally what it was. Curated and controlled. The Citadel policed it, the Council enforced it, and at the center of the whole thing was the conflict between C-137 and Prime. The villain wasn't just in the system, he was part of the system. Like contained chaos. The kind that keeps everything else in line because all the attention stays focused on one threat. And now, all of that is just gone. Citadel's rubble. The curve got fracked open by Rick while hunting Prime, and then shattered completely when Evil Morty punched through it. The daycare is closed, and nobody's watching the baby anymore. And Season 8 shows you exactly what that looks like. No Mortland introduces this thing called the Road, which is basically residual wormholes from Rick's tech. Cracks between dimensions that just stay open now, with no Citadel to patch them, and no curve containing them. Just unregulated pathways between realities that anyone can just walk through. And who's using them? Jerry's. I'm serious. There's a whole underground network of them out there marking safe trails with upside-down coasters and running a toll road through something called Grand Central with bandana-wearing Jerry's shaking people down for cash. The least capable people in the multiverse are walking between realities through bathroom closets and couch cushions with no tech and no portals. Just cracks in the wall that nobody's fixing. And if that's not structural failure, I honestly don't know what is. And it gets worse, because in the Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly, we see the Citadel's actual leftovers. Cloned Ricks and Mortys, biotrash basically, all got dumped back to their origin realities after the portal reset. And now there's no hierarchy and no system and no pecking order, just entropy. Boss Hog Rick, who's a clone that was literally manufactured to be a mascot for a gumbo restaurant chain, is now running his own knockoff Citadel and trafficking Mortys for labor. Meanwhile, there's a scientist Rick, who used to run the actual Morty replication program, just hiding out on a farm playing homesteader like nothing happened. The Rickessence is degrading, with copies of copies getting blurrier, and there's just nobody left to maintain any of it. But okay, here's the part that actually got me. Because everything so far, the wormholes and the clone rot and the structural leaking, that's all physical stuff, right? The multiverse literally falling apart. But Hot Rick shows you that the psychological side hasn't gone anywhere either. So, Memory Rick, you know about this. A younger version of C-137, built from his most heroic memories. This guy's he's been hopping between brains. He snuck from Bird Person into Jerry and set up camp in there, filled Jerry's head with fake nostalgia where Rick was this perfect supportive father who was always around. And he brought Memory Diane along with him too. And together, they tried to hijack Beth's mind, where Memory Rick hardwired one line into her. Mom is trapped in a box in the sub-basement. I'm the only one who can save her. This is how we stay a family. Just over and over, repeated it until it was stuck in her brain, and they nearly fried her mind from the inside out. And the ghosts of the Prime era aren't metaphors anymore. They're literally trying to crawl back into reality. Rick tried to move forward and took the memory of Diane out of his own head so he could be more emotionally open. And the damage still found its way back in. Because Prime didn't just structure the multiverse, he structured Rick's trauma. And without him, that trauma doesn't heal or resolve. It just kind of floats around and attaches to whatever's closest. So yeah, back to the question. What's more dangerous? A multiverse with Rick Prime or without him? And honestly, the answer's the one nobody wanted. Prime was the villain, obviously, but he was also the architect and the stabilizer, and the reason Rick functioned at all. The reason Infinity even had a shape to it. His existence made everything dangerous but organized, and his absence just makes it all directionless and unregulated, and slowly rotting from the inside out. Evil Morty's somewhere out there with the full Omega device blueprints and answering to absolutely no one. The road is leaking reality through every crack in the wall. Clone Ricks are building empires out of scraps. And the smartest man in whatever's left of the multiverse spent the very first episode of this season torturing his grandkids over a phone charger. Season 8 isn't the aftermath. The collapse is still happening.